Since average people rarely see in our daily lives, how can we understand and communicate about quality and fashion in the public discourse so we aren't paying $5,000 for jelly shoes? I normally tell people that it's very hard to talk about quality in fashion because it's such a nuanced conversation, and I feel like sometimes the conversations that we have about quality online are very simplistic. So someone will see something that's polyester and be like, oh, it's trash because it's polyester. And it's fashion is more nuanced than that. There's so many different ways that you can make polyester. Is it a synthetic fabric? Yes, but it depends what you're going for. For example, Issey Miyake, Un Plissé, Pleats Please, that's polyester, but that polyester has a lot of properties that are very favorable, right? If you want to pack your clothes into a tiny amount of space, you can do it with those Issey Miyake pieces. If you want something that you never need to iron, you can just straight out of the washing machine after it's been dried, you can just put it on. It's good for that. It's very sweat wicking. It's very lightweight. So not just because something is polyester doesn't automatically make it bad. And then even within polyester, there are different grades. Every fabric has different grades. So for example, wool as a fabric, it depends starting with the animals, how they are raised. That determines the quality of the fibers. Then it becomes how they are extracted from the animals. Then it becomes how these fabrics are treated. How well are they treated? Then it becomes how well are they dyed? In all these processes, that wool can be damaged. So depending on how you treat it, depending on how you clean it, you can damage it more than other people depending on the process. Depending on how you dye it, you can damage these fabrics more. So because I've worked in fashion for so long, I can just feel a fabric and see it and then in my mind determine all these things. But if you haven't worked in fashion for long, it's very hard to understand that. And so that's why it's hard for me to really comment on quality of things unless I have experience with it, unless it's just completely obviously bad quality. In the case of, let's say, a jewelry is a very good example. A lot of brands, they used to use 24 karat gold, now they use gold plated brass. That's a very obvious, you don't need to be there. They're cutting corners. They're selling the same jewelry that used to be 24 karat gold, now it's gold toned metal, or gold plated brass. That is obviously a case where you can obviously say, even just looking at it online, yeah, they're cutting corners, it's bad quality. It's easy to do that. But when we're talking about cottons and wools and stuff, it becomes very difficult to make that argument or to even really say with complete certainty how good quality something is. And so most times when I have a conversation about quality online, I normally talk about, oh yeah, I have experience with these pieces from these brands. The quality isn't great. But even that is subjective because once again, quality can change season to season. So one season, a brand can have fabrics that are really terrible, and then the next season, it's a completely different story. And that's where we get into brands that are more consistent. There are brands that are way more consistent with their quality than others. So it really depends. It's a very, very nuanced conversation. It's hard to just for me to just look at stuff and be like, that's good quality, that's shit, without feeling it or being close to it or having any experience with the kind of fabrics that a certain brand uses. Someone says, is Demna out of ideas, or is he just forced to put out cash cows like the pret-a-porter feckless shirts with prints? So let me put something on the screen that all of you guys should check out, actually. So this is an interview on YouTube. It's called Rethinking Heritage. Let me just play it so you guys can have it playing in the background. But essentially, this is an interview with Kathy Horan and Demna Vesalia. And it's essentially Demna just talking through his idea of Balenciaga, what Balenciaga is, why his version of Balenciaga is the way that it is, how he's changed the perception of what Balenciaga is, asking questions of what does luxury mean in the modern day? Why does it have to be this way? Why does it have to be that way? What is Balenciaga to the modern consumer? What does that mean? A very, very good interview, by the way. I didn't agree with a lot of the perspectives, both from Kathy Horan and Demna, but it's honestly probably the best interview by Demna online. And I reacted to it on my Patreon. If you guys want to see that, if you're on the Patreon, you can watch that. I reacted to the whole interview and gave my thoughts. So if you're interested, check that out. But why I'm mentioning this is because in the interview, he talks about the fact that merchandisers have a very strong say in terms of what the stores look like, the garments that go into the stores. And his design process is very much this collaborative effort with the marketing team and the merchandisers who essentially tell him, Demna, we like these ideas. However, last season, these black trousers really sold a lot. So whatever you do, we just need some form of black trousers that mimic what we saw last season so we can continue selling these. And so he mentions his frustrations with the commerciality of fashion and how important it is for him to sustain having a job at Balenciaga and how much that influences his design. He literally says it in this interview. So I think it's kind of a balancing act. And I know I say he's out of ideas because I'm more editorializing. I don't necessarily think he's out of ideas. I just think that sometimes he does a lot of gimmicks. I wouldn't say that he's completely out of ideas, even though I've said it before, but I'm editorializing. I think that Demna he has a signature look. He has a signature design aesthetic. I like it. I like his signature aesthetic, but I do think that there are aspects of it that could be improved. I still think that a lot of his work, he just jacks Margiela one of one, like a lot of the incognito stuff, even the most recent Balenciaga collection, that is a straight off, not the whole collection, obviously, but like the incognito glasses, those kind of things. That is a straight off Margiela ripoff, literally. And he still rips off Margiela a lot. That's one aspect that I'm always critiquing him about. But I'm actually a big fan of Demna. I don't think he's out of ideas. I just think that he has this balancing act that he has to juggle, and it's very hard. It's a very difficult thing to do, to be honest. Satan Lucifer. Oh, this is talking about when I was talking about the quality of fabrics. The natural fibers only community on social media is so simplistic and infuriating to me. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. There's a subsector of online fashion where they're like, if it's not natural fibers, it's bad quality, which obviously is wrong. It's just outright wrong. It's not correct. It's not a correct viewpoint to have on fashion. They make it seem like if it's a natural fiber, then it's high quality. And it's funny because there are lots of natural fibers that can be horrible quality if they are damaged in the treatment process and things that I was talking about earlier. So it really depends. There's so much nuance in it. But yeah, I see those kind of things online all the time where it's like, oh my God, this is made with this fabric. This is terrible quality. It's like, not necessarily. Rachel says, I feel like if average regular people would sew in our daily lives, we'll buy with so much more intelligence. 100%. If I hadn't worked in the fashion industry for so long, I probably wouldn't have a clue, which is why I don't blame anyone for not knowing, right? I don't see how you would know unless you sew or you have a lot of experience working with fabrics and different clothes. There's a lot of learning that needs to go on there. So yeah, if a lot of people made their own clothes, a lot of people would have a stronger sense of quality. I actually believe that if people started sewing their own clothes, the luxury fashion industry would disintegrate because most luxury brands, their quality is horrible, or for the price they are charging. I'll put it this way: for the price they are charging, the quality is absolutely atrocious. Rachel says, I wish we could have these types of technical discussions more often. Maybe I need to do a live stream just talking about fabrics and the nuances within fabrics, but that would be a very long conversation. And I come at it from different perspectives. I come at fabrics from the perspective of someone that the first degree that I did was in chemical process and material engineering. So there's a very scientific way that I look at materials and fabrics from a materials engineering standpoint. And then I went to fashion school. So I have a very broad understanding of like fabric. So I could talk about materials and fabrics forever, literally, but that's definitely a good idea for a video or live stream in the future, for sure. Elle says there are a few creators that go to stores and critique the quality of expensive clothing and talk construction materials quality. There's, who's the guy that does the leather? Tanner Leatherstein, I think. He's really good. He's, from my understanding, a leather craftsman who pulls apart luxury goods and tests the quality of the leather and stuff. Very, very good person to subscribe to if you're trying to learn about which brands have good quality fabrics and which ones don't, especially with leather specifically. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.